Welcome, friends.
Hello.
We are here at episode 3
Woo.
of Up the Waterfall.
Woo.
We
Number
made
3.
it to 3 episodes.
That's like the big time.
Yeah. We're now on the same level if we finish this episode.
If we finish.
Which, fingers crossed we make it through. As the Progress City USA Radio Hour. Was that the name of the
I believe
podcast?
so, yeah. Done by the Crawford boys.
Those Crawford boys, they knew how to give us content and then
yes, that was a
leave
good
us
show.
wanting more for 10 years or more.
I recommend checking out their 3 shows.
ProgressCityUSA.com. Anyway, so this week we're going to talk about Epcot Festivals.
Ooh.
Because there's one going on right now, which...
What are the odds of that?
Yeah, there's very little time when there isn't an Epcot Festival happening.
I believe there are 16 days a year where there's no festival.
16, okay.
That's, maybe an exaggeration, but what do we call that?
Yeah, they've taken to calling that Diet Epcot on Twitter, this Twitter account called Diet Epcot, which I need a pin, send one over. I love it. I think it's a great concept because when there is no festival, well, we'll get into that. It's just a more fun, quiet Epcot experience. But as we always do, we're going to go over the history of Epcot Festivals.
We'll try at least.
A little bit. We're not going to drone on, hopefully.
No.
We'll see what happens. But first, I think the first festival was the Flower and Garden Festival.
That's right.
If we're speaking
the
Epcot specifically.
International Flower and Garden Festival.
Yes, which started in 1994.
Mm.
I have no memory of whether I was in Epcot in 94. We moved down in 95.
Okay.
And I know we went starting then to that year. So I can't remember if we visited from Massachusetts in 94 or not, but my mother and I moved down. I loved it. It was the very first time, which now I think we take for granted. They floated the little flowers in the waterways there, which has now happened every festival since then. It started on April 23rd back then and went for only 5 weeks.
That's the thing. They've definitely gone to expand them, as I'm sure you'll explain.
I had a list. It went up to 52 days and then 60 days in 2007, 75 days. 2016, it was 90 days.
Yeah, they seem to always want to add a few days more, and they can only do that so much before they actually...
they run into each other.
Maybe that'll be a thing of the future.
Yeah, it's going to be festivals forever. That's going to be the new park name, just Epcot Festival.
Well,
that would be interesting if they had done that in the little... We'll save that for the Epcot episode. What did I want to say about this? It was originally presented by Better Homes and Gardens.
That's right.
Which they've had... I think in the beginning they had like a main sponsor, but now they definitely have many sponsors. As you can see, well, this is Food and Wine, but at the end here somewhere there's, not in this one, but there's a list.
It's somewhere in there, I'm sure.
All the sponsors.
But I do remember they had a different focus back then of the Flower and Garden Festival. They were pretty much wanting to basically demonstrate that in addition to making the park look beautiful with tons of flowers and topiaries, which they had pretty much introduced there, they were trying to show just regular common folks that, hey, you can do this too,
right,
in your backyard.
And that, when I was doing my research for this episode, because I had my personal history, but I didn't want to just spout facts and have them be incorrect. It was very interesting to try to find articles on the festival's pre-internet, everywhere, pre-blogs.
That's right.
So I found quite a few Orlando Sentinel articles, one written by Craig DeZern.
Oh, yes.
Which was funny because, he ended up at
later,
Disney.
Went to Disney.
And that was really the focus of the article. And then the next year or so after that I found too, it was all about the actual gardening aspect and how people could do that at home and how they were showcasing specific types of plants and different mulching types and like all this stuff, which they do still
they've
have
always
an educational component.
They've always kept that kind of thing in each of the festivals, and I think they've tried to make sure not to lose that. And certainly in the festival center, they have seminars about those kind of things where they bring in experts to talk about each and every different kind of subject.
Right.
So.
But it definitely has changed over time.
Yes, they've added
merchandise and food. and
yes, pretty much
special
everything
seminars that cost a lot of money.
They have the Food and Wine Festival, which we'll get into, but
Yes.
everything is now the Food and Flower and Garden Festival, for example. So.
Yeah. But, going back to finding articles from the late 90s, it was just really fascinating to read the focus of the story, which, I'm sure at the time was probably still some sort of press release that Disney was putting out. It was just like the whole focus was different from a company aspect.
Right. But if you think about it, I think they were kind of tying off of what they used to do at the marketplace back before they ever had any festivals. It was kind of more of an adult place to go.
Yeah.
And they actually had a shop there that was kind of a place to beautify your backyard and get kind of those kind of things. And I know that they used to have experts come in there at the marketplace to kind of talk about that kind of thing. So they basically expanded off of that kind of thing and to create this festival, the Flower and Garden Festival. So it's kind of ties off of that.
Yes. And one thing that I found in my research, which I guess I had totally blocked out a time before the railroad in Germany,
Oh, yes.
which debuted in the 1995
That's
Epcot
right.
Flower and Garden Festival.
Everyone always
Which,
loves that.
If you look online, there is a lot of conflicting reports that it came out in the 95 Food and Wine Festival, which didn't exist.
That's right.
So I've never edited a Wikipedia article in my life, but I want to go after
is
this
there
episode and edit
my.
a Wikipedia article
Time to get on that.
on the Flower and Garden
That's
Festival.
right, because-
Actually,
yeah.
the Food and Wine Festival, because they credit the railroad as coming out in 95, and it didn't.
It
even
did come out in
exist
95, just not for that festival because it didn't
then. Yeah,
exist. It
exactly.
was a flower garden.
So
And everyone always loves that now. That is always, they take that little
Yeah.
romantic road and checking out. And actually now they designed the little town there
yes,
after
which
they put the
they
festival
hadn't
there in
updated
Germany.
it in a while, but I guess they just did for the Food and Wine Festival, so it is
Okay.
updated again.
They always make sure to upright all of the little characters.
I know.
and
Well,
put the-
wind happens and
Yes.
lizards happen, but I
Giant
don't even
lizards.
have any memory of what was there before that.
Nothing. It was.
I mean, just like the empty space.
It was an empty space. Yeah, it was essentially an expansion pad for a new country that never came
That's
to be.
true. I was too focused on the World Key kiosk.
Oh yes, because that
Right
is very
across.
close to that
Yeah.
side of Germany. So
Yes, exactly. So anyway, that was a
that's a good
fun milestone, if you
Oh,
will,
yes.
of 95. And then in 99, which was a monumental year because Christian was born, of course, that's when the
our producer.
Flower Power concert series started,
Oh yes.
which was then renamed to Garden Rocks in 2015.
Yes, I think when they first did that, using the term flower power, they tried to get acts that were kind of
Yeah.
from like your mom and pop's heyday.
Right, like Herman's Hermits. I don't know if they're still around. I don't really pay attention to them.
Peter Nguyen from
I
the,
just mean, well, I know they're still like around. I don't know if they come to the festival, but I think that might have been why they changed it, because there wasn't as many of those 60s groups to
things like the
to come.
Turtles
They
or
needed to expand the
Monkees.
oldies section. Yeah, that's right. I didn't interview him, but I met Mickey Dolenz one year for a
That's
media
right.
event, so that was fun.
But they've certainly expanded it to include more modern acts, or even,
Yes.
I guess, more modern, but not completely modern.
Right, exactly.
like
It's
Hanson.
Food and Wine is the one that has the more
Yes.
contemporary, if you will, acts.
That's right.
Which we'll get into. But 2013, they added illuminated gardens, which I think I would have to look up a photo, but I think that was the year that they did those cool little laser things outside the butterfly garden. Do you remember
Okay.
that? There was like Tinkerbell.
Yes.
And they've moved Tinkerbell around a few
Yes.
times.
When
But
her
that was like
movies
the year
came out.
of those green lasers, which then everyone
Oh my
got,
gosh.
including us, for Christmas lights and things like that.
You might find them near Pandora.
Oh,
the
yeah,
World
that's
of
right.
Avatar.
That's where, yeah, I love them.
Oh
I
my
know it's
gosh.
like a very simple effect, but I'm
Yeah, I mean,
captivated by
you
it.
put them like in a disco ball, for example,
Yeah.
and just they'll go everywhere. Add
Yes.
fun sound effects like insects.
And
it's a
that
good thing.
same year, I don't remember. I think they lit up some of the floating things. Do you remember what else was illuminated about I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
I remember it wasn't that big of a deal.
I have been to it every year, but I don't remember specifically the details of when they did things.
But that was also the year 2013 where they added food marketplaces.
Official ones, yes.
Of course, the success of the Food and Wine Festival, they thought, hey, we can do this at Flower and Garden. And I think that is my preferred food like marketplace festival, because it's all like very fresh, and they try to really make unique things that come from either using more plants and fruits and vegetables versus just like, filet mignon with cheddar. Because
certainly food
soup.
and wine, they're definitely it's an assault, if you will, of so many different flavors and things. But here they're trying to theme them to more of the Flower and Garden, if you will. So they're more fresh.
And, as everyone knows, they rotate out some of the topiaries.
Yes.
So you will see them again, but sometimes they'll take them out to like rest in between years. So
right. And since the first one was 1995, I remember that's the year that they were very excited about their, the movie that had just come out the previous year, The Lion King, which was quite a success. And that's when they had introduced those characters. And they were, because we had seen some of the topiaries around before, but this was their chance to really showcase them and kind of put them in prominent spots.
The first one was
year.
94. You said 95.
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're self-editing as we go. The first Flower
I think
and Garden
I might
was
have made that mistake
94,
a couple of times.
and then 95,
right.
They did add Lion King that year, because I looked that up. I didn't write it down, but I remember. That's okay. Just so we have our facts straight.
That's right. So don't send in those letters just yet.
Yes. Well, you can. We'll still read them. It'll be fun.
Yes.
So that's pretty much it for Flower and Garden. I mean, do you have any generic thoughts on it as
it probably is
like
one of my favorites. I do. At the festival center, they usually have like a movie where they talk about all of the preparations. Pardon me. That they go through. Especially the folks that work in the flower area or the tree farm, for example, and all of the plantings they have to do and how far in advance they have to do it. And also because they've now stretched out the festival to be 90 plus days, they actually have to schedule replantings of all of the flowers,
especially
a couple of times during the festival. Mm-hmm. And that's always very interesting. And then they also they include the Seasons of the Vine video.
Ah, yes.
Which they at the Food and Wine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They all run together. That's
exactly.
the problem.
But that was an original from the California Adventure Park, so that's always fun to see too.
You enjoy that one.
But that goes for the next festival.
So let's go right into that, I guess.
Okay.
1996, the first Food and Wine Festival.
It was the first international Epcot or the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival. It was not the first Food and Wine Festival at Disney, because they had one at the Marketplace starting back in 1982.
Wow, I have no memory of that. I guess maybe vaguely.
And that actually went all the way from 82 through 1994. And so there was really only just the 1 year without a Food and Wine Festival, which was 95, because they were preparing for this brand new, basically an expanded festival called the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival.
And George Kalogridis gets all the credit for coming up with this, apparently. So
I just wanted to add one thing. It did move from the Marketplace actually to the Yacht and Beach Convention Center for the very last two of those years, the 1993 and 1994.
That one I seem to remember something, like seeing signs or something.
Then they took a year off, and then they premiered the 1996 International Epcot Food and Wine Festival, which is probably a lot of people's favorites.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has grown and expanded in the time that
Immensely.
It's been there. And I do remember I was going over, looking up old photos and things like that, and I was like, wow, I forgot about, remember when they used to have like a tent set up around the World Showcase?
Oh, yeah.
I forget where, I think it might have been like between France and Morocco, where they would hold some of the seminars there, which I think that's where Belgium is now, or maybe not Belgium. It's
well,
Brazil now.
they
Anyway,
changed
they
it,
changed
but
things
yeah,
around.
that spot in between
But yeah,
France and
I remember
Morocco.
like seeing those things, and I was like, oh, that's always so cool to see. There's classes going on and things. And then obviously they couldn't keep those because Epcot has grown.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about just all of these festivals that are happening and all of the booths that they have to place all around, if you think back when Epcot opened, they actually had, if you remember, the omnibuses that would circle the place. Can you imagine that now?
I think
there is way too many people.
Yeah, and
now.
that's what I always say, like they could never bring them back because of these festivals and because of drinking around the world and everything like that. It would be a liability nightmare. But
absolutely. So yes, they've definitely moved those the seminars into more appropriate places.
They switched from doing some at the Odyssey to some at the Festival Center, which of course is the former Wonders of Life Pavilion. But now for this current festival, since that is closed to become the Play Pavilion, I guess the seminars are happening. No, the Odyssey's closed too for the... I don't know where they're happening.
Is it
It might be
World
Showplace, I guess. That's where the Parties for the Senses always were. I don't know because
I actually have not been yet this year, so...
Oh, really? Well, we're going tomorrow.
Yeah, we are going tomorrow.
Or yesterday. Anyway, so yeah, it's been interesting to see how the things have grown over time. Something that I found interesting when I was doing my research, which I was up in Rhode Island for 2001, but because after 9/11, 2001 and beyond for that whole festival year was not very crowded because people didn't want to travel, of course, and it was a very somber time. That year, pretty much every celebrity chef canceled, but Disney still put it on with all of their company chefs. All the cast members made it happen. But then the year after that, in 2002, was when the Eat to the Beat concert series appeared because they wanted to say, hey, come visit us again. Everything's fine. Look, we have... That's right.
So in addition to the Flower Power for the Flower and Garden Festival, they added a similar element to this one as well. So,
and that, I mean, I think there was some kind of sort of crossover with maybe the first year of the type of acts, but then it definitely evolved into more contemporary / late 80s, 90s people.
And I seem to recall also one of the festivals had it so that they only had those acts performing, I believe, on the weekends, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, whereas the Food and Wine, I believe, they had one every day.
Every day, yes.
And then I think they've since added one every day at the other one as well.
And there was also, which I didn't even look this up or anything, but there was that summer concert series.
Yes.
Which, does that even still exist? Because
I'm not sure. It was the Sounds Like Summer concert series where they would bring
do the impersonators or like
cover
sounds
bands.
Like cover bands. Sorry.
Yes.
Which I don't think they do that anymore.
No, I don't. I think just a few years ago they stopped doing that.
I think because Flower and Garden stretches.
Yes. One's stretching one way, the other stretching the other way, and pretty soon they'll meet.
Yes.
Somewhere maybe in July.
Something will happen. So also that same year was when Party for the Senses first started.
Ooh, I've been to a couple of those.
I've never been to one.
We've been to one.
No.
A preview of one.
We went to the Puerto Rico specific party, which I don't think that's the same category as Party for the Senses.
I thought that was...
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, you can tell us if we're wrong, but I think the Party for the Senses is a specific separate thing, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
That's okay.
I did make a note of this just for your own personal use. 96 was when the Argentina added beef empanadas.
Woo! It's one of my all-time
missing them ever
things.
since.
There was one year when the beef empanadas included cheese, and that was a very dark and somber year for me because I don't like cheese.
Yes.
As maybe some of you have heard in the past.
So, additionally, in 2005, get this, I have no memory of this, even though I did live in Florida then. Race for the Taste 10K was a thing.
Absolutely.
So it was just a 10K that started at Wide World of Sports, and then went through, I think, Hollywood Studios, and then ended up in Epcot.
That's right.
And then they had the whole after party, which they still do.
Yes.
I think
for a late night party. That was a popular one because it was a different a time of day for the runs.
Right.
And then, of course, ending with a festival.
Yeah, and that would be like the day before the festival started, usually. So they would get to preview all of the booths and food before it opened to the public. So that
actually became, as the races have all become incredibly popular, I've heard stories of that one becoming very crowded as well.
Yes. Yeah.
That's definitely an issue with a lot of these festivals, is they've become so very popular.
Yeah.
To the point of maybe sometimes on the weekends there just might be a few too many people.
It is always a sea of people when you go there on a weekend, especially. But in 2009, they added a 3K to that. I don't know if that was a typo where I read it, but it seems like a very odd thing. A 3K would be like a mile or something.
I don't know, because
I've
never heard of a 3K. A 5K.
I could be wrong.
Just 3.1 is which we've done in the past. If you
We've even done a 10K.
That's right.
But not anytime recently. And then 2010 was when the first Food and Wine and Dine half marathon was. And it's been
everything has grown
like that ever since. Wasn't there one year that they didn't make it at night? I can't remember.
Probably. But
it's not important. I just thought of it now.
It might be for somebody, but you'll just have to do your own research on that one.
2011, they added Hawaii, which was a big hit.
I remember
everyone liked that. It's still there today. And also, that was the first year for the Cranberry Bog.
Oh, yes.
Which has come and gone. We've been able to walk through the bog a couple of times.
Waded through the berries.
We'll throw those photos in. I just saw them today on my time hop, actually. So
that's always fun.
I do miss the bog.
Because it's a thing from your back in Massachusetts where they have
which I never really,
lots of those.
Because they were on the Cape and we weren't Cape people, we were Maine people. We went to Ogunquit. So I never really saw bogs until I was in high school and we went out with my friend to see. Anyway, it was a Renaissance festival out in the Cape. There was bogs.
A Ren fair at the bog.
Exactly. But there's also, cranberries in Wisconsin and other places.
I believe I've learned when we did that there are 5 states that have cranberry bogs. And they're not like 5 states that are all touch each other. I believe Virginia, Oregon, and a couple others.
Just need the right kind of weather to grow a cranberry.
Can't remember.
So 2012, Terra premiered, which was an all-vegan booth.
Because that's a lot of people want that kind of thing now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole booth now for. This is Food and Wine. I was going to say Flower and Garden. There's another whole booth which is now Earth Eats this year.
But I do remember when that first came out. Yeah. That was kind of a big thing because I remember they had the chicken.
Mm-hmm. And then I think they did away with it either last year or the year before that, and people were like, "Where did it go?" But they still had vegan items. They just didn't have a whole booth of it.
Right. But that was a lot of people's first introduction to that kind of thing, where it was food that's meant to taste like meat that isn't. Interesting.
And they definitely have a lot more vegan items in the Flower and Garden Festival because
the Impossible Burger,
all of the plant type things.
Yes, delicious.
Christian's trying to sign language to me.
We did a video about it. Plug it.
Oh yeah, we did a video.
Yes,
I have to get my branding down.
Didn't you do a video on that?
We
recently?
did do all of the vegan items that you can eat at this year's Epcot International Food and Wine Festival. So if you are a vegan or you're vegan curious,
that would be me.
You can check it out and see which ones were our favorites. Additionally, that was the same year, 2012, that the Chase Lounge was added.
The Chase Lounge.
Which was originally in the Festival Center at the Wonders of Life former pavilion.
That's right.
And you got to go upstairs.
That's right, into their...
Which is one of my favorite...
The corporate
VIP
sponsor
lounges,
lounge,
which if you want to see photos from those, you can search on Zannaland.com because I've got most of them covered.
That was
I have
fun.
to update those, but yeah, it was a goal of mine to get to see all of the VIP lounges without, going to Epcot and saying, "Hey, can I see your lounge?" So most of them have been either because of an event going on that I was invited to or a friend that knew someone that could get in. Anyway, 2013, that was moved over to the third floor of the American Adventure Pavilion.
Right. And both of those were fantastic. I remember they had to introduce the those Coke machines. What are those called?
Oh, yeah, the Freestyle.
The Freestyle.
Which I don't drink soda, so I never really appreciated them.
But they have more than just sodas.
I got free
there.
iced coffee there. I would make myself an iced coffee.
But it was a way to basically try all kinds of different fun flavors.
And, you know, one year they had like Disney Infinity in that back room for kids.
That's right.
Back when Disney Infinity was a big thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, of course, there is no more Chase Lounge.
Nope. That has been taken over by...
Club 33 is
Club
in the
33
American...
Epcot.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure.
Maybe someday we'll see it, but we've already seen it, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen the American Pavilion. How
and
great
we've
could
been
it
to
be?
the original Club 33.
This
so
is
that's
true. That'll be another episode.
I'm good for now on that.
So that's the extent of my historical food and wine thing. I don't know if you want any. You haven't been this year, so
No,
I guess you
haven't.
have no commentary on
I'm
that.
going tomorrow or yesterday.
We will have another video, I think.
I have seen the booklet for it this
Yes.
year, and I look forward to perusing through that, picking out some
And
favorites.
This has been, I didn't mention this, but I want to now. A lot of the fun things about these festivals is the fact that they will come out with new themes or artwork.
Yes.
But this has been the same one for, I think, 3 years now.
I do have a previous. Here's another one.
Oh,
it's kind of
here's this one. What year was that?
This is 2 years ago.
Yeah, see? So this has been
it's
3
very
years,
similar.
and people were commenting on that online.
Yeah.
I like the art style of it, but I do think a new design is always a fun thing to have.
With all the changes coming to Epcot soon, you could probably bet that there will be changes.
They've been a little busy
styles.
doing other designs for other things, but
plus they've got other festivals to do.
One thing this year, stay tuned for further video on this. It is on our existing video with the Appleseed Orchard. I think that was the best idea they ever had.
Let's
was
talk
to
about
turn the actual movie area of the Canada 360-degree film
Circle Vision
into a Appleseed Orchard. There's like a wine flight and a cider flight in there as well.
Plus there are already made kind of stands to place your food and drink items.
Places where you would
the
stand
lean
up
rails
actually are wide enough to put a drink or something
so when they
inside.
say that they are not designed to support the weight of you or your children, they actually are designed to support the weight of your food
flight.
and your cider flight.
And your Johnny Appleseed apple corn.
Even though I'm not sure that there was any history of Johnny Appleseed going to Canada. But
I was
maybe there was.
expecting you to say that, and I was wondering, I was waiting for you when I brought home the little apple.
It's a
popcorn.
fun way to include a fun Disney character.
I mean, who knows
with an
where
apple-themed
Johnny Chapman went, but
Appleseed. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's his
real
original
name.
name. I'm sorry.
He's a real guy.
I mean, as you can remember from the Disney short, he actually went to, all across America, planting his apple seeds.
One of my favorite shorts. If you have not seen it,
gosh.
check it out.
I would actually recommend that. And so very likely he did pop into Canada and planted a few seeds. And so there you go.
There are apples in Canada, so.
Yes, there are.
Oh, look, we have a visual aid.
Here you are.
Here's the Johnny Apples. Well, it's not Johnny Appleseed specific, but he's in
It's
the
a fun apple with
the
what?
little popcorn holder. This is probably stale now.
Let's try.
It's very sticky. It's caramel
It's
apple corn. And I think this is adorable. This was $10, and I was like, I'm getting it. I don't care if it's vegan or not. My family can eat it, and I'm keeping this apple.
Yep.
So there you go.
I like it.
And there's lights in there. I've posted on my Instagram. You can see, and it's on our other video.
It's very reminiscent of the old land pavilion.
Yes.
With the streamers kind of coming from the center of the
I love a streamer.
Yes. And very colorful. So.
And those popcorn lights, as Tony Baxter calls them.
That's right. But it's also an excuse to go farther back into Canada than most people normally do.
I had no idea that it was there. We saw the sign, where it has the little Le Cellier sign, and it said apple orchard or Appleseed Orchard, whatever it's called, this way. And I was like, what? And they had a little display on the grass there where they usually just have flowers, and it was like
in the garden.
the
Yes.
apple picking paraphernalia with a
Okay.
little apple picking ladder and all sorts of fun stuff. So, and then I thought walking down there that it was, it's just going to be in the kid cot area, but no, it was inside. I'm really excited about it. It was a fun
Yes.
thing.
So everyone, when you go this year, make sure to hit that.
But it won't be permanent because
No,
there's going to
because
be a new Canada movie.
They're
So,
so they're kind of doing it in between.
make a space where you can have popcorn lights and streamers, and I'll be happy.
I'm sure they'll figure something out. Disney's they're pretty good at that kind of thing.
They are good at some things like
They
that. So yeah, that we'll have more coverage of the Food and Wine Festival. I mean, I think, if I'm honest, Food and Wine has not been my favorite festival for a long time because of the drinking around the world, and it's so crazy on the weekends, and it's kind of just turned into a very raucous event.
Yeah.
And that's great if there's people that want to do that, but
That's
everything in
not my
moderation
thing.
is my motto,
So
which isn't my motto, but
I would recommend, if you do get a chance, to not go on a weekend and try to hit a weekday where it's less crowded.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've probably heard that tip before, but
definitely
it's definitely a big
weekdays,
tip.
weeknights are much less crowded. But the good thing about it is there are always favorite foods and there's always new things.
Yes.
They took away Greece this year, which was a shocker.
Whole country.
The whole country, which has been there
Wow.
from the start.
That's when they would have the spanakopita
I
and all
believe.
that.
Yeah, so
No more spanny.
I know. And then there's a lot more focus, of course, in recent years on festival-specific merchandise.
Yes, always themed.
Put a little zest in your fest, as this.
I forgot.
This
I've got
imitation
I've got
turbot. It's
a
not a real
fun
turbot.
flower and garden one here.
Yeah, well,
This
anything
one
with
says,
figment on it is okay
"Unearth
by me.
the unexpected."
Yes. So these are both from Flower and Garden. This is, of course, referencing the violet lemonade, frozen lemonade, which is a very popular item. And I never have ordered it. I only get it when I go to an event and they have a sample of it. It's good. I'm not a huge, sweet, slushy drinking person. I would prefer to have a coffee drink if I'm going to do that.
I do like sweet
straight
drinks.
coffee.
But-
But anyway, it's super popular. It's very pretty and it's very Instagrammable, which has also been a trend in recent years. with the
Instagram is a
festivals.
trend? I've never heard of it.
No, I mean, making foods.
Yes.
That's actually what
No,
our
absolutely.
next festival, if you want to get into that.
That's right. Because
What is it called? Festival of the Arts. It's like,
It's
it does have
literally right
international
here.
in it still, doesn't it?
it does.
Everything's
It's the
international.
Epcot International Festival of the Arts. It's now been 2 years, 2018 and 2019. It's usually in January and February. This has become our favorite.
This
wouldn't you
is
say?
my absolute favorite festival because now originally
us
when
why.
they made these festivals, it was because it was like a shoulder season of travel and it wasn't as
Right.
crowded. That is not the case anymore with these other two festivals that we just mentioned. This one is still pretty not as crowded and it's so much cooler out.
Yes.
It's actually chilly some
There's
days.
like 6 weeks of the year where Florida gets some pretty decent weather, and it's right around this time. So
In addition, hey look, this is signed by Jeff Curdy.
that's right.
Figment is kind of involved in all of the festivals, but he's
Yes.
like really involved here because he is a painter himself,
That's right. There's so many different things to this festival, including the hidden art that they've done in each of the World Showcase pavilions, where they've taken a famous painting from that country and they've kind of redone it, but thrown Figment in there somehow.
Yes. And
one of the popular ones, for example, is the Scream.
yes,
from
the screen
Norway,
in Norway. And they
with Figment as
they will use the same paintings or art.
They've switched them. Some of them are the same,
Oh, really?
but some of them have switched over the 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. My favorite one wasn't there. That's what I was just going to talk about. My favorite. In Germany, they had one
Yes.
which I don't remember the name of. I did not look this up. I will post a link to it on my Instagram.
Yes.
But that's what I was going to say was what I love about this is I consider myself knowledgeable on with art.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an art history major or anything, but I've been to a few museums. I've grown up in Boston, which is very, culturally
That's right.
whatever. And I did not know this piece that was in Germany, so I felt like an idiot because I was like, what? This is so cool. And I looked up the original, and I really liked it. So,
Yep. It had Figment
Epcot
in
is
it.
still educational every now and then if you...
So anyway, that's always been a fun thing, is because they kind of hide it somewhere in the pavilion. It's sometimes in a gift shop, sometimes it's in the Kidcot area, and it's not always been in the same place both of the 2 years that they've had
That's
it.
right. They do move
And
those
they've some of them have been the same painting, and then some have they've changed it, but they've always, as I said, incorporated Figment into the painting, and it's always fun. So it's a fun thing to do and to look for with kids.
Yes.
But then they also, you remember the first year, they had those little stations where you could do, that's these.
Wait, this is
the
2018.
etchings. Yeah, this was the first year.
Oh, that's right. This is this
where
year.
they had etching stations where you could essentially take a couple pages and do etchings where they would have some chalks.
Gargoyle from France.
Yeah, and so they would be, each country would have a theme. And you'd go around and do that. So that was always fun.
It was fun.
Basically something to do in each of the pavilions throughout World Showcase that was kind of art related.
I think it got a little congested with people waiting to do the etchings, but it really was a fun thing. This is good that you have this. I forgot that you did all of those.
Yeah, but they did not do that.
They did not. They just did the
year.
stickers.
But what else did they do at this festival?
They also do
where we would paint.
Oh, the painting. Yes.
Come on.
I was going to say Broadway, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
This has the mosaic. Like everyone gets to paint 5 squares or more if you can sneak some in. And they give you a little piece of cup of paint and a little disposable brush, and
you could be your own Monet. Or
it's really fun. We should have had
Picasso.
one of the postcards. They give you a postcard when you
so it's essentially
what it's going to look like.
A giant paint by numbers.
Yeah.
Except instead of they would do it in squares, and so each square would be labeled with a number, and you had your paint color was a certain number, and so you were asked to paint 5 and no more than 5 of your number.
Yes.
But I had extra paint, and I didn't want to throw it away, so I
know,
might have
that's the
stretched
only
my
part-
5 into 10.
I do hope they
15,
recycle all of that stuff, because I
20.
always feel bad that I'm like throwing out paint. But anyway, they do they'll either do an original Epcot art piece, like from the original concept art and something.
Like one of the John Hench
Or-
drawings, paintings of old Epcot.
Or a fun new Figment scene, or stuff like that. So it is a fun thing.
It would, because people would cycle through it pretty quickly. They might finish one in 1 or 2 days, and so
it
they
really
would
depends
put
on
a new
when
one
they're
up
doing it.
pretty quick. And so over the course of the festival, they would probably do 20, maybe 30 of them. I don't know.
And this last festival, when they finished a mural, they would put it up on the construction walls around the former Universe of Energy.
That's right.
I don't know if they'll do that again. I don't know if the construction walls have changed.
Which is another place that they would have chalk art.
We will have a lot more construction walls now, I guess. They have plenty of places they can put them. But there's chalk art around.
They would invite people to come in and do professional chalk art, which is always fun. And then even places where you could try it out yourself.
Yes.
But then they would also have food.
They have fun little artistic things. Everything, like I said, is very Instagrammable.
Yes.
They're all very unique for the most part.
Yes, to be themed with the festival, I believe they've asked the chefs to kind of create essentially works of art that are edible. And so I think they even went into it saying it might take longer to prepare because they're essentially little pieces of art, but they'll be very delicious.
And then, of course, they have beer and wine and drinks that aren't necessarily works of art, but some people may think so. Additionally, the Disney Broadway series is always a fun.
Oh yes.
Continuing with like having a musical component to these festivals.
Well, Disney has done enough musicals now that they would bring in stars from their famous musicals. I know Ashley Brown and Josh Strickland are always the two favorites, who have been Mary Poppins and Tarzan on Broadway, and they've taken a bunch of stars from The Lion King and Newsies and The Little Mermaid and now Frozen to come in and essentially perform Broadway hits for us.
And it is a great way for people that may not be in a bigger city that has a Broadway series, a touring company coming through, to be exposed to those live performances.
And they would have 3 shows a day, so they would always make sure to put different songs in each. And they wouldn't just sing the songs that they personally performed on Broadway themselves, but they would do hits from all of the shows, whether they were in it or not. So they were always a medley. Yes. Always a popular thing.
I was trying to look up the first year; it was only on weekends.
Yes.
And was that the case last year too? I can't remember.
I mean
this year.
But it was also the seminars. You remember that?
Yes,
that's the whole
why
other
this
thing
was signed by Jeff Curdy
with the Festival of the Arts. Is they would have tons of seminars on all things, not necessarily arts, but on things like animation or what else?
There was people that do set design or creating merchandise sets for the stores in Disney and things like that.
And in this case, they brought in authors. In this case, Jeff Curdy, who actually at that time had just released the Disney Christmas card book, but he was actually talking about Travels with Walt, a book that he had done, and so he essentially came in and talked about Walt Disney and all of the places he had been. So it was just fun that they would have tons of essentially every day different seminars and other things that most of which are free, some of which are kind of more elaborate and more in depth that are paid.
Yeah, but things. You usually always get some sort of
course,
souvenir.
And there were even a couple that were quite a bit expensive, but it was very hands-on. I can't remember what those ones were for, but
something good.
Yes.
So
I think like flower decorating.
Oh, okay.
That kind of
the
thing.
art of flower arranging.
Exactly.
Perhaps. That
would be one of the examples. Yes.
This is. Oh, they also have those photo ops around World Showcase in some future World places, maybe, where you can go inside of a very popular work of art and be a part of it. And then PhotoPass people will take your photo, and it's like you're part of.
One of the great things about that festival is that it incorporates so many different elements that are all kind of art related. So. A fun one.
It's just a fun time. It's not 900 degrees. It's not super duper crowded, so I'm a fan.
That's right. But then
that brings us, if we go back a few months.
Yeah, we could actually go back a few months. They've actually kind of created a 4th festival called Festival of the Holidays.
The audience enjoys this one.
This one is very unique because it essentially incorporates a bunch of elements that they pretty much already had, and then kind of created a festival around that.
That's why I wasn't really paying attention to it too much, because I was like, isn't that just what happens anyway?
Exactly. So it actually didn't become an official festival until 2016, which is fairly recently, but they've been doing a lot of the major elements for this for quite some time. I don't need that. But for example, one of the main things is the candlelight processional, which is actually a thing that originated way back in Disneyland in the 50s. There's an element of that even in the very first Christmas in 55, but the first official candlelight processional took place in 1958 on Main Street in Disneyland. And then when Disney World opened in 71, they had a candlelight processional there at the Magic Kingdom its opening year. But then it moved to Epcot after it opened in 1994, and that was the first one there. And it's been at Epcot ever since in the American Gardens Theater. I've even performed in it myself a few times.
Yes.
It's definitely a fan favorite.
It always is. No matter how religious you are, it's very moving.
Oh,
It's a
yes.
moving, the live orchestra,
A
the
giant
massed
150
choir, and
piece
a celebrity
orchestra.
narrator, which is always fun,
The
depending on who you
Voices
get.
of Liberty. Then they would bring in a conductor. There's the cast choir as well as guest choirs from high schools around the
that's right.
nation that would come in, and then of course celebrity narrators, which
Yeah.
is always fun. I know Neil Patrick Harris has always been a popular one.
Who's been your favorite?
Honestly,
Yeah.
my favorite way
Oh, wait,
back in the
I know the
day
answer.
was Robert Urich, of all
I
things.
forgot. I thought you were going to say Edward James Olmos, but it was no, Robert Urich. That's right.
He was back in the day when I used to
Rest in
do
peace.
it. Yes, God bless him.
Spencer for hire.
That's right, Vegas and things like that. Anyway, but he was just very friendly, and he got talked to the folks backstage, which was always fun.
So you had insider info
Yeah.
on him.
Yes,
I'm
and
trying to
a
think
couple
of-
other of my favorites were Lou Gossett Jr. and yes, Edward James Olmos was always fun.
I'm trying to think of who my favorite was. I really enjoyed Jonathan Groff when we saw him.
Oh yes,
But I love him in general, so he could just stand there and read the guide map and I'd be fine with it. Neil Patrick Harris is always, I think he's so popular because he's a great performer. And what I love watching when I see him narrate is him looking back and seeing, like, he'll look at everyone as they're singing and really appreciate
absolutely
the efforts that are being put forth and appreciate being there. And
That's
that's
right.
what I think is so fun.
I have encountered celebrity narrators who have definitely not been into that. I don't know.
Yes.
If you want to ask me about that personally, we can talk about that, but I won't.
know the answer to it.
But
Song.
The best song is
there are many.
Jump for Joy.
Wrong.
Shout for Joy, I
Shout
believe
for
is what you're
Joy.
talking about. But you can jump.
What's your favorite one?
Elene.
Oh, yeah, Elene. That's a good one.
It's in French.
It is. I used to sing that in French class when I
Yeah,
was in Virginia.
there was a certain year where they tried to add a foreign element, or where they would have that song sung in French, another song, Silent Night, in German, and then also the What Child Is This in Spanish. So just to kind of bring in a more international flair. But that was it was certainly fun to perform, and then also to see even just as a guest.
What's your time frame for starting to play the Candlelight soundtrack, Christian? Do you think
November.
November? I was going to say November 1st for you.
Probably November.
It does
1st.
get played a lot around here, along with, this is a completely different episode, the Disneyland Paris Christmas album,
Oh yes.
which I need to somehow get onto my phone because you only have it on CD. What's that song?
I don't remember the name of it, but I can sing it for
Chanson
you.
something.
It's just a wonderful Christmas song that
It's really
they have. It was actually on an album that's not just Christmas, but
Oh,
it's a whole Disneyland Paris
I just
album
played
that
that
has
one on
that one
repeat.
track. That's a Christmas song, which is just fabulous. But anyway, so
Yeah,
I
sorry,
kind
back
of
to
got
the
lost in the
festival.
woods. So the Candlelight Processional has been there, and if you may remember, also the Lights of Winter.
Which you used to be
That
able to
was-
see when you did a Disney race,
That's
because
right,
you would
would
go
right through it.
backstage behind the Epcot parking area on, what is that, Woodpecker Lane or
That's
something?
right, Woodpecker Lane.
And you would see them sitting there rusting away. And then
Yes.
everyone would always comment on that, and they finally took them away from backstage, so who knows where they are now.
So that was introduced in 1994 and lasted all the way through the 2008 Christmas season. And then the 2009 was the first year when they said, I guess their official excuse was that the technology was
That
outdated.
is what they said, which I would,
was
honestly, I
weird.
think they would gain a lot
It's
of
so, yeah.
support from the
That was a
Epcot fans if they brought
huge
that
loss,
back
because
in a new form.
Yeah, I would just sit on a bench there and just sit underneath the lights listening to all of the holiday music.
Yeah.
It was a place that had it was 30,000 twinkling lights with seemingly unending Christmas music that would play there, and then the lights would essentially dance to that music, and it was just fabulous. It was a very simple thing.
That's really how
But-
I learned of Mannheim Steamroller, was
Oh, yeah.
hearing
Very
their
popular.
Christmas songs. I think their version of Deck the Halls was like, I was like, I need to find out what song this is, and
Yeah.
it was played in there.
So.
But they could so totally
Yeah,
do
if
that.
you were to
Like,
ask me,
been so many
there's no
advances
reason, no
in
reason to not have that.
LED light technology. They
Yeah.
should bring it back.
But anyway, another element, of course, one of the most famous is the holidays around the world,
Yes.
which is going strong even to this day. It started at Epcot in 1996, and that is a thing where they would take a performer, essentially a storyteller from each of the countries of the World Showcase, and they would tell their Christmas story or their holiday story.
Yes.
And they would have popular people such as who?
Père Noël.
Père Noël, the Monkey King,
Yes.
and Father Christmas,
Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
Sigrid
Yes.
meets Julenissen and the Christmas gnome in
Yes.
Norway.
And so it would be fun to just go around to each of the countries and listen to their things, their stories. That's always been a fun element, and they've
And that's what I love about World Showcase and have always loved is the cultural element
Yes.
that you get exposed to things that you might not otherwise
That's
see,
right.
which is what I hope stays in Epcot.
So
in the
anyway,
future.
so in the year, I guess 2016, they realized, hey, we have all of these things already. Let's create a festival,
Yeah, and then add
an
food to
official
it.
festival, right? And so they added food, of course, to it, and things.
But it
like
is,
that.
I mean, it's not a ton of food, and most of the things are, for the most part, dessert items. But I mean, that's what Christmas is all
Yeah.
about.
And
I'm
then they can have
kind
a
of
fun
worried
little
for
booklet.
this year being a vegan, but I'll find something.
There will be things for you.
Certainly don't need any more desserts.
But
But
that
anyway.
essentially created the fourth and kind of now the ever-going cycle of festivals at Epcot that have taken
Yeah.
place ever since, where they would have a fun booklet with used to be stamps,
Yes.
but now they would actually provide a page of stickers that you could peel off and place on the page if you have tried it. I actually like to
Do
do
you
it anyway.
get a thing if you? I guess why would they give you a thing?
used to do
they
a
used to do it
thing
when you
where
got a stamp, but
yeah,
now
if you
I
got
don't
all the
think-
stamps, you can go back to the festival center and turn it in for a prize. I don't believe they do that anymore.
No,
but
you just get the sticker, and
yeah.
that's fun enough.
it is.
So yeah,
So-
I mean that's our whole year of festivals. I'm really wondering. I guess maybe March. There's no festival.
Yeah, at the
Maybe
end of the
June,
Festival of the Arts,
July?
there's actually literally just a couple of weeks in between the end of the Festival of the Arts and the beginning of the Flower and Garden, which now does start in March and goes into
Goes
June.
Into June. Wow.
Yeah, so the longest break between festivals is in the summer,
June.
in between the Flower and Garden and the Food and
Because
Wine.
it's really hot then.
Yeah, it's super hot.
Super hot, and it's crowded because everyone's off school.
Right.
So
And then at the end of the Food and Wine Festival, there's also just maybe a couple of weeks in between that and then the holidays,
holiday
which
one.
I believe literally starts always the day after Thanksgiving
yeah.
and goes into always December 30th. And then, New Year's Eve is its own big thing. And then you just have just a couple of weeks before the Festival of the Arts starts again. So there's literally
Hooray.
just a little bit of time where you get, as you said, Epcot Light.
Yeah.
Or what did you say?
Diet Epcot.
Diet Epcot. I'm sorry.
So yeah, I mean, tell us what you think. Do you prefer all the festivals in Epcot? Do you enjoy taking part in them, or do you wish there was more Diet Epcot time?
I mean, there is a lot of changes coming to Epcot. So
There are. It'll be interesting to see how this festival's already started. There's not really going to be too much construction in World Showcase area.
yeah, most of the construction right now is in Future World, or what was Future World, and now is what are they now called?
Neighborhoods.
The neighborhoods. So it'll be interesting to see that transition
Yes.
from Epcot of old, or not Epcot Center of old, but from Epcot of old to this new thing that they're doing.
Oh, just
and
wait
how-
for our Epcot episode. It's going to
Oh,
be
yes,
a
that's gonna be a
glorious
big one.
3-hour.
But I mean, the festival is definitely a big part of what Epcot is now, and certainly most of it is in World Showcase, and it's just a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, it has been
with
interesting
lots of
to view the changes over time and how it's changed and grown, what they've kept, what they've gotten rid of. So I mean, I don't think they're going away anytime soon.
No.
So you kind of have to either plan around, the busiest times of the year or the festivals, or just, dive in and take part in the festivals.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. Because if you can't beat them, join them.
I think we did a third episode. We made it through.
That's right.
It's happened. So
we'll have to celebrate our own festival.
The fourth episode will be new territory.
Oh my. Uh-oh.
I guess we need to think of a topic. Anyway, thanks for watching us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining, listening in, if you're listening versus watching. We didn't have any visits from the kitten tonight, so if you were watching, then you did not get to enjoy
Sorry about that.
our cameos by our cat. Make sure you follow us on social media if you want to see more Disney fun. Otisney for you, Zannaland,
yes.
Tiki Birds with a Z for Christian, our ever faithful producer.
So,
and
check out the website, the Instagram page, the YouTube page. We're now doing all
like
kinds
and
of fun
subscribe,
things.
set notifications, the whole
But
deal.
also send notes. We'd like to hear your
we'd love
feedback.
Feedback. Is anyone listening? Are we boring you to death? Let us know.
Yeah, what kind of changes can we make or things like that. So let us know.
Yes, let us know. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week.
That's right. Up the waterfall.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's only part of it. We got a big climatic scene.
But how could you top it?
Well, we set the place on fire, and we have our audience trapped down in this flaming city.
And how can they get out then?
Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible in Disneyland.